Today on Drawbli, Abby is drawing...
What I learned from the Force book.
From the Force.
Which we should probably call it what it really is called, but go ahead.
Force Dynamic Life Drawing by Michael D. Matesi. Hey, click that subscribe button if you're new around here.
And comment below with other ideas of things we can read or do to become better at art.
Tell me, Abby, about your experience with Michael and the Force drawing
My
book.
experience with Michael.
I'm so excited to hear.
My date with Michael. I loved his book. I absolutely loved it. I really tried to employ a lot of what I learned here. This was right after I finished it. We were at a coffee shop, one of the best places to draw.
Absolutely.
Yes, and we were actually sitting outside, which is another awesome thing.
That was a really cool coffee shop.
And oh my goodness, I learned so much. Oh, look at me, even trying to write in like some alternation of the straight and curve.
Woo.
I forgot I did that. I only
Look
did
at
that on
contrast.
this one. Yeah. So that was one thing you talked about, the contrast of course, having a straight to a curve. Oh, and I jot in. And
very commonly taught by Disney.
Yeah, and alternating pushes. Like, so when you see one object or line bowing out, you might have an opposing...
Force, Abby. You have to say force, not push.
Forcing out. You might have something on the opposite side also like forcing out to create this like expulsion of energy that helps us remain balanced.
Yeah.
I did not think in hindsight that this reference was good for this just because she's
balled up.
It's held in midair, where it's like, so I feel like probably Michael would not have chosen this reference for one of his early beginning students, but I went for it, and it was just kind of tricky to work with. But yeah, I loved that of just really pushing lines away from each other.
Okay.
And when he talked about how a standing figure, you see, like, let's say from the side, you see it pushing out towards the front, pushing out towards the back, all this alternating to create a balanced human being. That's why we don't just fall over, is because we're constantly, we have angles pushing against each other all the time.
Yeah, a beginner mistake is you'll see lots of parallels, lots of parallel lines. And getting away from that is what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Another thing I learned, and this wasn't really like a big concept in the book, this was just one sentence that stood out to me, but he was like, oh, if you have something that's trying to come forward at you from the page, he says he was taught to give it bold lines, but not a lot of fill-in, not a lot of like filler detail.
Oh yeah, I do remember that.
And I thought that was actually a really helpful notion.
It helps separate it, is what he said. It helps, like, if somebody's reading a book, like you got here, giving it those dark lines. Yeah, that's a great example.
Yeah, without a lot of fill-in, or her knees there. Like, I didn't do a lot of fill-in on those because they're supposed to be coming towards us versus like the rest of her body.
Nice.
Yeah. And he also had good things about clothing too. Just helping you to learn to train your eye to see how it wraps around a form. And I used that there to draw her book on her lap better. I don't think I would have drawn her book exactly like that prior to reading this book. Here's an example, I feel like, of kind of that back and forth energy of things pushing and pulling against each other to help maintain balance. This one, I don't remember exactly everything from here, but that I was like trying to focus on learning.
So is balance like your key takeaway, you would say, from the Force book? Or
just
was there
this expulsion of energy from the center of a thing that alternates in a rhythm as you go? So a push from the hip may also mean a push out lower down from the inner thigh.
You can see how her right shoulder pushes up and out, and her left hip pushes up and out.
Yeah, exactly.
An opposing rhythm.
Exactly.
When someone is standing neutrally like this, it's called a contrapposto pose, just because of the opposition of the angle of the shoulders and hips.
And I tried to do little drawovers down the line in red just to help myself see, like, where was I hitting it? Where would I have slightly edited this maybe in hindsight? Trying to help myself, just a slight iterative approach. I liked drawing this guy.
This one's awesome.
His pose is really funny. Oh, here I tried something else I learned in the book, where he talked about having his students do this practice where they actually don't look at their paper
is it the
at
blind
all.
drawing? You tried it?
It's very, very physical, which I like, a physical component of creating art, where you don't look at the page, you just look at the form, and you try to pretend you're like a fly running along that form. and you're just becoming really intimately acquainted with every detail. So the entire line going from the top of his head to his back, to his foot.
So you drew that line blind.
I did. And
just that line, or?
Just that line. It came out really short, really, really short. So I ended up having to elongate it to make it accurate. But I liked doing that too.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have not tried that practice yet, but I do remember reading about it. I thought it sounded really hard.
One thing I noticed as I was doing this was, for these practices, I used the charcoal pencils in Procreate. And one thing I've been trying to capture here is I use the willow and the vine. And the willow is nice and it's wide.
These are 2 different brushes?
These are 2 different brushes. And the willow one I use for like my big line work, my big lines and gestures. But what I don't like is, what I wish I had from a physical medium, is the ability to like just barely pull up, and get that really fine-tuned edge exactly when and where I want it.
Gotcha.
And to get that here, I had to switch, when I was ready to work on something smaller, to a different charcoal brush entirely. I couldn't quite find the pressure sensitivity that I was hoping for. Although I did experiment with a few different charcoal brushes. So later on in the week, I went back and tried to work on identifying which brushes would allow me to do that, and just work on that in general, like really fine-tuning my awareness of the pressure sensitivity of the pencil, because that's one thing that I really struggle with digital, is not being able to just barely lift up with the pen to get just that taper I want at that second that I'm not even that conscious of when I'm using a pen on paper. Oh, and this gesture, by the way, I was like, in hindsight, too complex for me trying to do.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's all
it looks good.
wonky.
It looks good. You did a good job, and I like
Thanks.
your red line drawovers too.
Thank you. I liked how this one was fun. I could imagine Lois using this. These are all the same stock photos that Lois uses.
Senshi Stock, I believe.
And I like that, it's a very, very simple pose, simple lighting, simple clothing, because I guess the idea is, you, the artist, are going to create on top of that. I do not create on top of that myself here, but I like that concept. Like this girl with her headphones. It's a cool pose. Listening.
It is, yeah.
And you could, dress her up in some cute, cool outfit. And give her some different hair, all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you can use what's great about these references, and I think a lot of what Michael talks about in his book, is that your reference, you're not necessarily always trying to copy it, like one-to-one. You're trying to use that almost as a point of inspiration.
Yeah.
Even the gesture, like you're not trying to create a photograph of the gesture. You're trying to take the gesture and you're trying to add something more to it, which I think is something that I need to definitely focus on and work on more.
Absolutely. Now, this is an artist that Michael recommended studying in his book. This is a work by the sculptor, Richard MacDonald. So I used this for my final gesture drawing. So not much I can add to here. This guy, I actually saw his statues without realizing that that's who I was seeing, because I didn't know him yet, at the Bellagio in Vegas. Yeah, I remember being very, very impressed and staying there for a while, like, wow, who put these sculptures here? Just like a total, did not know what I was looking at.
Did you end up drawing one of his that you saw?
No.
In person?
I couldn't probably tell you the exact ones I saw. I think maybe one of them, they were all associated with the Cirque du Soleil, because of course they perform in Vegas a lot. So they were very cool gymnastic poses. But no, I did not end up drawing one of the ones that I saw. At least I don't think this was there. I just saw, I think, even the teaser of statues that they have outside of the true museum of his work. So yeah, I really liked Michael's book. I liked, one other thing I didn't talk about was how he says you want to find your relationship between rib cage and hips pretty early on.
Oh, yeah. That's,
yeah.
I think that's a pretty common starting point.
Yeah, although,
Main line of the body.
There's always somebody learning it for the first time somewhere, and that's me.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think lots of people start differently. What I'm saying is that's a common way. I think people just start naturally, right?
Oh, okay.
That's a good, big landmark.
Yeah, that's true. And it's definitely noticeable when that's off. I've drawn that proportion off more times than I can count when I try to draw a whole like form.
I really like these. I like all of these. I think you did a really good job. I can definitely see some improvements. I like also that you went back and did like a draw over for a lot of these of some changes that you might make or things that you're noticing. The guy like hulking out is so good. Like,
So much force and energy there.
There is a lot of energy there.
Which one do you think Michael would pick and say, oh, yes, you may take my class. You may come to my class?
Michael would
I
look
gave
at
him
all
an
of these.
accent.
Yeah, I don't know why. Yeah. I don't know. I think you would look at all of these and be really impressed. I think the I mean, we're beginners, you know, we're new at this. We've done it a handful of times. I think we could count on one hand how many times we sat down and done gesture drawings for Drawbli at least.
Yeah, it's fun to be new at something.
It is, yeah.
It can be frustrating too, but I'm trying to remember that it's also fun
No,
to be
I
new.
mean, if you're not having fun, then why are you
I
doing
am
it at
having
the end of the
fun.
day?
Awesome.
Speaking of fun, you can have more fun with us here on Drawbli by clicking that subscribe button if you're new around here.
Yeah, comment below with other ideas of what we can do to improve as artists.
And this is the part where we say
Goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody. Yeah, I think Michael would be very impressed. I think he would actually pay you to take his class.
Wow. I hope a lot of money.